What's next for the New York Knicks? Well, after a fantastic season, now all the focus is going to be on the offseason. Bit of a disappointing end to the year for New York, losing in 5 games in the first round of the Atlanta Hawks, but just getting to where they did this year sets them up great for the future, but also deserves to be celebrated in the moment. We're going to look back at the year for New York, what went right for them, what they can do this offseason to improve this roster, and then kind of the outlook for them moving forward as well. Quick spoiler alert, by the way, it looks pretty bright in New York right now. But really quickly before we get started, I like to remind people, my name is Tucker, by the way. I upload NBA stuff on this channel every single day. It's the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. If that's something that you're looking for, then consider subscribing. Consider liking the video as well if you're enjoying it. And you can check me out at various socials and a Linktree link down in the description below. With those things said, let's take a look back at the year for the Knicks. So this is where I feel like we have to start, right? This was a fantastic season for New York. And I'll be honest, I didn't love the Tibbs hiring. I didn't think that this was going to be a very good team. I thought that they would be on the outside looking in the playoff picture. And they ended up with home court advantage in the first round as the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. It was an awesome, awesome season for them. And in a season in which you had to overcome a lot of adversity, in a season in which they quite frankly did not have a ton of great offensive players on the roster, they figured out a way to be a really, really good team through defense, through energy and effort, and just figuring out a way to get enough points on the board every single night, and it was a great season for them. And there was a lot of individual performances that were promising as well. Immanuel Quickley was really good as a rookie. Obi Toppin was a bit up and down, but if you're looking for a rookie that really looked good out of this class for New York, it was Quickley. There were other guys as well that stepped up. Alec Burks had a sneaky nice season for them. Mitchell Robinson was fine before he suffered an injury, and of course the big one is Julius Randle. This is a guy that a lot of us made fun of for the contract that New York gave him. As soon as last offseason was talking about Julius Randle as a guy that could potentially get bought out of his contract. There's a non-guaranteed season for next year at $19.8 million, and he turns into an All-NBA caliber player. Most people have him on an All-NBA team. I'm expecting him to make an All-NBA team, and that is an incredible amount of improvement for him as well as for the rest of this roster. The Derrick Rose trade worked out really, really well for them as well, and it set themselves up for a couple of things. One, they've got a lot of flexibility going into this offseason, which we'll talk about in a second, but as we've talked about in multiple videos, having a season like this, specifically for the Knicks, raises the confidence level in them around the league and raises what we think of them in terms of our expectations for their competence as a franchise. They've done a fantastic job in the front office. Tibbs was a great hire, and I think they're in a really, really good position moving forward. It all kind of begins with how well they played this year. Now, as we look at the offseason for New York, we'll begin with the payroll stuff. There's a lot to take a look at here. They have a lot of impending free agents, and there's a couple of different avenues really they could go this offseason depending on what they choose to do. They have most specifically and most notably Derrick Rose, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, guys like that are free agents this offseason. Reggie Bullock. A lot of the core, a lot of the guys that were playing big minutes in these postseason games are going to be free agents. Really, the only notable guys they have on the roster moving forward under contract are some of the most recent rookies like Obi Toppin and Immanuel Quickley. Julius Randle makes $19.8 next year and is a free agent in 2022. And then RJ Barrett, who will be needing an extension coming up here as well. And then Mitchell Robinson as well. And for me, when you're looking at this offseason for New York, you have to focus around 3 questions. One, what are you going to do about Julius Randle? Do you want to extend him now? Do you want to wait until 2022 to sign him to a new contract, potentially an unrestricted free agency? How confident are you in the season that Julius Randle just had being legit, especially given his postseason performance recently? The second question is, how much do you want to commit to the core of this most recent team with as many of these guys being free agents as they are? How aggressive do you want to be in retaining those free agents? And the third question is, how aggressive do you want to be in going out to get other free agents from other teams, especially in an offseason in which they have a ton of cap space, just $54 million in payroll for this upcoming season, but they have a lot of their own guys they need to take care of, and there aren't really a ton of big-name great options to add to this group. So first, let's talk about the Randle thing, and I think this is actually a really difficult decision. He had an awesome season, going to make an All-NBA team. He's just 27 years old. There should be some more improvement from him moving forward, but the postseason performance for him has to make you nervous if you're a Knicks fan, and you've got to really start thinking about how much you want to be paying Julius Randle moving forward. Randle absolutely destroyed the Hawks in the regular season. He had incredible statistics against them and just did not look good in the postseason. Now, granted, Atlanta, even though they aren't seen as a great defensive team, were missing guys in the regular season when they did play Randle, and so now that they are fully healthy in the postseason with guys like DeAndre Hunter out there to guard him, maybe that had a lot to do with it, but it just didn't seem like there was a ton of ability from Randle to create and generate great offense in the postseason the way that he did in the regular season, and that really held back New York in the playoffs. So if you're looking at an extension worth $30 million a year for Julius Randle, is that something that you really want to commit to? I would be hesitant to. Again, you have some time to make that decision. He makes $19.8 next year, and then he's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2022. Do you want to go ahead and extend him this offseason? What is he looking for in free agency? Or are you willing to lose him in 2022, potentially trade him during the year this year? As it relates to your own free agents, I think there are a couple of options here. One, ideally, you probably just want to sign these guys to one-year deals. Rose, Noel, Bullock, Burks. If you can sign them to significant one-year deals, 1-and-1 deals where you have team options for next offseason, that would be the ideal circumstance because you really kind of want to understand how legit of a season this was for you. We've seen seasons with weird circumstances like the bubble last year where teams come back the next year and it's just not the same. And I'm not saying that New York isn't going to be good next year. I'm just saying that maybe you want to see a little bit more from this group before you start committing tons of money to bringing back all of these impending free agents. The biggest name here being Derrick Rose. So ideally, you bring these guys back on one-year deals that don't hurt you long-term. You bring in some other free agents in the offseason as well, and you run it back next year, and you try and be good again next year without over-committing to the core from the year before. And this is the ultimate flexibility plan because you also, keep in mind, have the Dallas picks this year as well as in 2023 in the first round. So you have some opportunity here if you sign these players to one-year deals to potentially trade Julius Randle at the trade deadline if you want to, trade Derrick Rose at the trade deadline if you want to, any of these guys on one-year deals. You have these picks as well. You have young guys on the roster. This is the ultimate flexibility plan if you're New York. Now, the other option here is just to say, we haven't had a season like this in a long time. It's been like 8 years since we've had a really good Knicks season. Let's commit to the guys that just allowed us to get there. Let's bring back Derrick Rose on a significant deal. Let's bring back Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel on significant deals. And then we'll worry about the Randle extension, the RJ Barrett extension, the Mitchell Robinson extension at a later date. Let's just not lose the momentum that we just built up this year. And again, with the flexibility to trade some of those guys depending on the contracts you sign them to and having those picks moving forward into the future as well. And then the last avenue here would be to be really aggressive and going out to get free agents this offseason to add to not only your own free agents, but also then signing some of these guys, Randle, Barrett, and Robinson, to extensions. And then that's your team moving forward. You look at restricted free agency options like Lonzo Ball, like Lauri Markkanen. Do you try and convince Chris Paul to opt out of his option and potentially go out there and throw a ton of money at Chris Paul to bring him to New York? Is Victor Oladipo someone that you're really interested in, is kind of just taking a big swing? And then, of course, everybody's wondering if Kawhi Leonard could potentially be an option for New York as well. How aggressive do you want to be in free agency for other guys as well as your own is going to be the big question for New York. Ultimately, I think it's pretty clear that it's really difficult to speculate on exactly what's going to happen in New York this offseason because there are so many options, which is why I kind of phrase things the way I did in the beginning of this section, where everything needs to be focused around those three questions: the Randle extension, your own free agents, and how aggressive are you going to be going out to get other guys in free agency. If it was up to me, I think flexibility is the name of the game here. You don't want to lock yourself into a situation where you're suddenly paying big money to a lot of guys that were good this most recent year, but then you go into next year and that's just not the way that guys have performed. And then you're looking at Julius Randle at $33 million a year for the next 4 years, and he's just not nearly as good as he was this most recent season. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. It's just something that I personally would guard against. Now, the downside to that could be losing out on a couple of players that really helped you build a great team this year, have a great year this year, and then you lose out on some of the momentum that came to New York this offseason. All of those things are certainly things that you need to take into consideration. I personally would just rather have the flexibility that would allow you to kind of do whatever you want moving forward. The unfortunate thing here for New York is the free agency stuff in terms of other teams' free agents, though, because if this had happened a year or two earlier, you could make the argument that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving would be playing in New York right now. They got it together just a little bit too late to make this the ideal situation where you go out and do the New York Knicks thing, where you go out and get big-time free agents and everything works out. Unfortunately, they're a little bit late on that. There aren't big name free agents like that readily available in this offseason, but they have the opportunity to sign some players, to re-sign their own guys, to make some trades, and the future is certainly bright in New York, even if the direction isn't entirely clear. You have young players you can trade. You could even move Randle if you wanted to. You could or could not re-sign some of these guys. Tons of different directions to go for New York, and so even though it's bright, it is a little bit hazy in terms of which direction they're going to go in, but still, having all those options is not necessarily a bad thing. In terms of the outlook moving forward for New York, as I said, it's incredibly bright, and it comes down to what decisions they need to make. There are a lot of tough decisions to make this offseason and off seasons to follow in terms of what you want to give RJ Barrett on a rookie extension. How aggressive do you want to be in re-signing Mitchell Robinson as a restricted free agent in 2022? The Julius Randle stuff we've talked about, but I think the important thing here for New York, potentially the most important thing, is not how well Randle played this most recent season. It's not how some of the younger guys have looked. It's not the flexibility and the potential they do have to build a really good roster in New York, but it's the confidence level that you now have, that I now have, speaking for myself, in their ability to make the correct decisions. No front office is going to get every single thing right, but New York has shown an ability to build a really good team and to make the correct decisions. And with as many decisions as they're going to have to make over the next couple of years, that has to make you feel good as a Knicks fan. I think Tibbs is the right coach. I think they've got an interesting young core. I think they've got a lot of different directions they can go in. And that's pretty much all you can ask for if you're the Knicks, especially comparing this to the situation they were in even just 12 months ago, where the future did not look particularly bright. They're arguably the most, if not one of the most, if not the most interesting team of this entire offseason. I'm really, really intrigued by what they could potentially be doing here. And it's going to be a crazy, crazy offseason, really next couple of off seasons here for the Knicks. I'm hoping they make the right decisions. It's really fun to have New York be a good team. Having those home playoff games in Madison Square Garden, it gave me goosebumps to see everybody there and to see the Knicks and the passion that fan base has was super, super fun, and I hope we get more of that. With all those things said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like rating on it. You can let me know down in the comment section below as well what you think could potentially be happening for New York this offseason, or what you think they should do this offseason. And if you enjoyed the video, as I said, consider subscribing. I upload every single day. Also, if you want to hang out with me outside these videos, link down in the description below. And hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.